Imagine walking into a car dealership and spotting an electric vehicle sitting there, not priced at $60,000, not even $30,000, but only $14,000. And here's the real shocker. It doesn't need fuel, it doesn't need charging, and yet it keeps running endlessly. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But Africa's very own Maxwell Chikumbutso has turned the entire global EV industry upside down because a self-powered electric car is now officially being sold. The surprise is shaking the world. For years, Maxwell's name was whispered in technology circles. Some people described him as a genius, while others dismissed him as a rumor or a myth. He had introduced a car powered by what he called microic energy, a strange system that changes unseen waves into endless motion. But until now, it had been hidden inside labs, shown only in rare and controlled demonstrations. Everything changed when reports appeared of a limited public release. Maxwell's self-powered EV was suddenly being offered to the public in select parts of Africa and Asia at a jaw-dropping price of just $14,000. The reaction was immediate. The news spread like wildfire across the globe. Online videos leaked showing people test driving the car, with dashboards that never seemed to lose battery percentage. A farmer in Zimbabwe was recorded hauling crops for days without once plugging in the vehicle. In Kenya, a taxi driver claimed he had been transporting passengers for weeks without spending a single dollar on fuel or suffering any downtime. International media houses rushed to confirm the story, while big car makers and tech companies grew restless. Could it actually be true that an African inventor had beaten Tesla, Toyota, and Volkswagen in the EV race? The price itself added another layer of disruption. The car wasn't just endlessly powered, it was also affordable. With a price tag of around $14,000, it undercut nearly every other EV on the global market. Experts began saying this wasn't just a new invention, it was an economic earthquake. Picture entire countries across Africa and Asia, where buying cars had always been out of reach for many people, suddenly getting access to vehicles that never need refueling, never require charging, and cost less than many second-hand cars in the United States. Reports quickly suggested that Elon Musk had noticed the development. Insiders hinted that Tesla engineers were quietly ordered to examine and even try replicating the mysterious microic system. But here's the twist. No one outside Maxwell's own team had been able to figure it out. A leaked report from a Chinese automobile research lab admitted, "We don't fully understand this energy source. It breaks the normal rules of physics as we know them." Meanwhile, the first group of buyers had already begun placing orders. Small fleets of these vehicles were spotted in Zambia, Nigeria, and even as pilot programs inside China. Videos spread online showing excited customers receiving deliveries of cars that most people around the world thought couldn't possibly exist. The reactions ranged from pure joy to open disbelief. One man who held the keys to his new car said simply, "This is freedom. I'll never spend money on fuel again." But with every revolution comes resistance. Almost immediately, governments tied heavily to oil exports began raising concerns. Lobbyists claimed the vehicle hadn't been certified for safety and pushed for immediate bans until further tests were carried out. Energy corporations, facing the danger of losing billions in future revenue, quietly pressured authorities to restrict the import of Maxwell's vehicles. In one case, an entire shipment of cars headed for West Africa was mysteriously stuck at customs, with no official explanation given. Major automakers, on the other hand, stayed completely silent. No press statements, no official responses. But behind the scenes, insiders leaked that emergency board meetings were taking place in Detroit, Tokyo, and Stuttgart. Why? Because Maxwell's $14,000 self-powered EV wasn't just a breakthrough. It was a potential market destroyer. Tesla, General Motors, Toyota, and Volkswagen had all invested their futures in costly EVs that required giant charging networks. If Maxwell's technology was the real deal, billions of dollars in research and infrastructure might become worthless overnight. Then came another twist. Reports surfaced that China had quietly made a deal to help produce parts of Maxwell's self-power system. Factories in Shenzhen and Guangzhou were rumored to be manufacturing components for thousands of vehicles per month, preparing for a massive rollout far beyond Africa. This revelation left Western companies outraged. Analysts warned that if Africa and China truly teamed up to mass-produce this vehicle, the global car industry would be changed forever. On social media, the reaction was overwhelming. Hashtags like Free Energy Car and Maxwell EV trended across Twitter and TikTok. Videos of young Africans showing off their car's endless driving range went viral, sparking endless debates. Some people hailed Maxwell's creation as the death of the oil industry. Others called it a scam. But one fact couldn't be denied. Real people were driving these cars, and they weren't stopping. Yet in the shadows, darker forces moved. Reports circulated that Maxwell's team was receiving threats, warning him to shut down production. Industry whispers suggested oil barons and political groups were pressuring African governments to block distribution. In one interview with a Zimbabwean journalist, he declared, "This technology isn't mine alone. It belongs to humanity. You can't stop an idea whose time has arrived." By early reports, Africa and China had already started building the foundations for mass distribution. Shipping routes were being prepared, factories expanded, and dealerships set up in cities like Nairobi, Lagos, and Johannesburg. But this rollout was no longer just about cars. It had become about geopolitical power. Whoever controlled the technology would not only dominate the car industry, but also reshape global energy dependence itself. And so the story didn't end with suppression or a corporate takeover. It ended with a worldwide revolution. From Africa to Asia, from villages to megacities, the quiet hum of self-powered vehicles filled the air. Maxwell Chikumbutso, once dismissed as nothing more than a dreamer, had changed the entire future. As people drove into a new era, free from fuel stations, free from charging points, one truth could no longer be denied. The age of self-powered transport had truly begun.